thank you for your tremendously inspiring work and that of your two organizations. Yes. We are now moving to the part of the program that involves the panel discussion. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce Anisa Mehdi, who will serve as the moderator of our symposium entitled Women Taking the Lead in Muslim Societies. Anisa is an Emmy award-winning journalist who for more than 20 years has reported, written, directed, and produced television news and documentary programs for major American media outlets, including National Geographic, PBS, ABC News, and CBS. Anisa.
Thank you, Pat. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure you're as eager as I am to get into the content of this panel, Women Taking the Lead in Muslim Societies. Certainly that notion is not a common conversation in our media, nor a part of American conventional wisdom. I am very proud of the Gruber Foundation for navigating into this underappreciated current. And I'm grateful to you, Pat and Peter, for giving me the chance to steer our conversation for a little while here today. After I introduce each of our panelists, we're going to get right into the discussion. Your questions can be included in our conversation if you fill them out on the index cards that were available as you came into the room. There will be people collecting those cards, and we'll be happy to include your questions as we go through our panel conversation in the next hour. So without further delay, you all now know Pinar, our recipient. Congratulations again. Let me introduce to you, on your far right is Daisy Khan. Daisy is the executive director of the American Society for Muslim Advancement, which is also known as the ASMA Society. ASMA is a nonprofit organization geared toward building bridges between American Muslims and the greater American society at large. Interestingly, ASMA is also working on building bridges among Muslims themselves. And certainly from news reports, we see there's a lot of work to be done in that area. Last year, Ms. Khan launched two cutting-edge intra-faith programs, one called MLT, Muslim Leaders of Tomorrow, and the other called WISE, the Women's Islamic Initiative in Spirituality and Equity. And that was last November here in New York City. I was proud to attend that meeting. Now, Daisy Khan is an example of a Muslim woman taking the lead in a non-Muslim society here in the United States. And I'm proud to say that I helped move Ms. Khan into the mainstream by featuring her in my National Geographic documentary, Inside Mecca. Daisy Khan was born in Kashmir. Next to Daisy, we have Sakena Yacoobi, who is the founder of the Afghan Institute of Learning, or AIL. AIL is one of the largest women-led non-governmental organizations in Afghanistan. Professor Yacoobi has worked extensively with Afghan refugees who are living in Pakistan. There are about 1.5 million Afghan refugees living in Pakistan. Through her efforts with the International Rescue Committee on the Pakistan border, the number of girls enrolled in school quadrupled within a year. That's an extraordinary statistic, and it signals to me a great hope for not only their future, but for our future. Her website is www.creatinghope.org, and you can learn more about her there. Professor Yacoobi was the 2004 recipient of the Gruber Women's Rights Prize. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Zainab Salbi. Zainab is the founder and CEO of Women for Women International, not to be confused with the organization of our recipient today. Ms. Salbi is a native of Iraq, and she grew up under the thumb of Saddam Hussein. My father, too, is from Iraq, Zainab, but he left during the monarchy, so did not experience that particular social aberration. Zainab is the author of a memoir on growing up in Iraq in those days, which is called Between Two Worlds: Escape from Tyranny, Growing Up in the Shadow of Saddam. I would say that we are blessed that Zainab has taken the trials of her childhood and sculpted them into a worldview for women's empowerment that knows no national boundaries. If you're not on her listserv yet, it's a good place to go to be informed, and you should get there. Her website is www.womenforwomen.org. Through participating in Women for Women International, each one of us has the opportunity to help support women around the world to stand up on their own 2 feet. And there are lots of grassroots groups around our country. I know a group in Montclair, New Jersey, meeting tonight who are supporting Zainab's work. She serves on the Gruber Foundation Women's Rights Advisory Board, as you've been told, and I guess that's all of you. We have Pinar. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much. If in that corner you can't see me, you'll see the back of my head, but that's okay. Let's get right into this. Many of us here in the West may be misinformed about the state. Can you hear me okay? You'd think in television I'd know that. Many of us in the West may be misinformed about the state of women's rights in Muslim-majority countries. So I'd like each of you to address this question at the beginning. What rights do women have in the Muslim society with which you are the most familiar? And specifically, what rights are they being denied? And which rights are the most important to go for? I'd like to start with Professor Yacoobi with Afghanistan. With Afghanistan, of course, burqas and the kite runner are our primary image, and perhaps there are other perspectives we can gain.
Thank you very much, Anisa. First of all, it's a great honor to be in this event because I know that this prize has changed my life, and the women who I work with them has changed their life a great deal. So it's a great honor to be here with this group. Especially, I want to thank Peter and Patricia Foundation that they are really supporting the people who are unreachable, and that means so much to me, and I'm honored to be here. First, I wanted to say that. Well, what is the rights of the women in my country, and do they have a rights or not? In our constitution, yes, the woman has a right. They can vote, they can speak, they can get education, they can be secure, they can hold the office, they can choose to marry. All these are the right that they have. And prior to 2001, these rights were not existed because, as you know, during the Taliban, these all were close to the women. But now we do have a constitution, and these rights are all available for the women. But how they are practiced and how they are exercised, this is another question. The way that they struggle to get education. They struggle right now to even hold the office. Although we have people in the parliament, although we have people who are a governor official, but they are struggling in their post. And also we have women who are struggle against violence. Although they are giving the right to be safe and secure, but the violence in Afghanistan day by day is getting worse and worse.
And you would say then that the government is generally supportive of these increased rights for women?
Well, the government is supporting, but again, how they are exercised, how they are protected, that's another issue.
Okay.
So
we'll get into that, I'm sure. Zainab, can you talk about contemporary Iraq, perhaps?
Thank you. And before that, actually, I would, if I may add on one statement on Afghanistan, I think the government is not prioritizing women's rights in Afghanistan, and I think that's the case in many governments, and that's what we need to distinguish between having legal constitutional rights and between really seeing women's rights as a bellwether for the direction of the society. So it becomes a national interest to actually protect women's rights, because when women withdraw back home, everyone suffers, and when women progress, everyone suffers. If I am to talk about Iraq particularly, I usually like to talk about all over the world, but I would say probably women's rights are going downwards big time in Iraq right now. It's a big loss. If we had violence against women during Saddam's time, I always see it as a vertical violence. The state committed violence against women in Iraq, but not everyone else could do that. And right now what we have is a horizontal violence in which everyone can commit violence against women in Iraq. And women in many ways feel more vulnerable than we were beforehand. The lessons learned from Iraq, and really quickly, the interesting point in Iraq is actually religious groups were more interested in the discussion of women than secular groups were, in every single way since the beginning of the invasion. Many women, for example, who run for elections in Iraq first went to the secular groups and asked if they can run under their ballot and under their card, and the secular groups said, no, we're not interested. So they went to the religious groups, and the religious groups welcomed them. Religious groups like Sistani and other groups and other members issued fatwas for women to go and vote independently of their husbands, while the secular groups did not do anything. Now, this is not necessarily out of altruistic motives. Religious groups want the control of women's rights because that's the private sphere. They want the control over family law that regulates issues of marriage, divorce, inheritance, custody, things like that, because it dominates the private sphere, and that's what they want. Secular groups want the free market economy, they want free trade, and they don't necessarily prioritize women's issues as a national issue. And that's what's happening in Iraq, and that's the loss in many ways, I would argue.
Altruism and politics rarely go together. Put this back on again. I know you go back to Kashmir from time to time, so you've got Kashmir and the United States in terms of rights for women.
Yeah, I was going to actually tell you that I can't speak for Kashmir because I'm an American citizen now. And actually, by extension, I feel like I'm more of a global citizen because I travel extensively throughout the world. My own trajectory is very simple. I came from a very empowered family. I came from a Muslim family from Kashmir, where the tradition was that every girl and every boy was treated equally, and we have a long tradition of women participating in society. So, having grown up with that kind of a mindset, when I came to America, I did not understand why Muslim women were so disempowered all over the world. And I had to actually develop my Muslim woman identity by force. 9/11 was, people actually looked at me as a Muslim woman. I was not a Muslim woman until then. I was just a Muslim who happened to be American, who happened to be New Yorker, who happened to have lived in India, who happened to come from Kashmir. I was straddling all these multiple identities, and then by force I was invited to come speak on panels where I was told that I was a Muslim woman. So speak on behalf of 500 million Muslim women. And that forced me and confronted me to look at the realities of Muslim women. And as we know, the challenges of Muslim women are diverse. On the one hand, we've had 5 women who've been heads of state. And in fact, in Afghanistan, a woman dared to run for president against Karzai, Masouda Jalal. So we've had 5 women heads of state, but yet the condition of Muslim women is dismal in some parts of the world. So I had to contend with that, and I realized that actually that there are these stark realities. And I just wanted to share a couple of things with you. There is a gender gap index which rates about 116 countries around the globe. And shamefully, the bottom 5 countries are Muslim countries. Yemen is the worst. Second one is Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Egypt, and Iran, of all the places, which was shocking to me. I thought Iran would be way up there because of its educational attainment. And which country is the best rated amongst Muslim countries? Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Malaysia, and then Bangladesh. So, but this is based on economic participation, educational attainment, health and survival, and political engagement. So you can see the political engagement in Saudi Arabia drops down, and so brings the women down at the lowest level. Well, in addition to that, I wanted to share something with you which is very close to me because I also represent a Muslim organization. And I'm going to speak from a Quranic point of view, and the Quranic point of view is that women have equal entitlements to their male counterparts. We are considered to be a legal person according to the Quran. We have certain rights. We are considered to be a social person. You know, we engage the family. We are supposed to be citizens of the world. We are supposed to be spiritual beings. We access. We are supposed to be accountable for our good deeds and our bad deeds. And all these entitlements, according to God, are given to us, but somehow man snatcheth it away from us. So I think that what Zainab was pointing out, and I'd just like to add to that, I think the challenge is how do you bring in the Islamic legal framework, the discourse, the wonderful work that Pinar is doing and other people are doing, and how can we now bring in the religious argument to this, like our Christian women did when they fought against the slavery and said, you know, we are created in the eyes of God, we are created as equal, so why are we denied access to education and access to vote and property and all this other stuff? So we are saying that we have rights within Islamic law. Nothing is perfect. I'm sure that there are some things we have to struggle for, but then we have to also reframe this in such a way that people understand these rights in a religious vernacular, which is what the street really understands.
Well, that leads me to a question that I had for Pinar directly. Turkey is a secular nation by constitution and by pride and by a declaration. So it surprised me to hear that only recently such stereotypically oppressive Islamic rules were being reversed. I was surprised to hear that the kind of laws that you've had to work to change were in place in a secular nation.
Yes, it's always so interesting to speak about these issues in the West. Turkey, these laws, for example, the civil law, which we have changed in 2001 after campaigning, was adapted word by word from the Swiss law, the Switzerland. So because at the time as it was adapted, Switzerland had so much discriminatory laws against women, so Turkey just took them over. The penal code, which we have changed in 2004, after 3 years of campaigning, was in fact adapted word by word from the Italian criminal law. And it was the Italians who were so discriminatory, but of course the Turks had no intention at the time to be better than the Italians towards women, so they just took over the articles. So, in fact, I think this is a very good opportunity. As I was listening to my friends, I think, like we always do as Muslim women, we should start with the diversity in Muslim societies. Muslim societies are incredibly diverse. Turkey is not the only secular Muslim country. Senegal is secular. Indonesia is secular. Tunisia is to a great extent secular. So it's like, Turkey is not unique with its secularity. But I do think that, personally, having worked in so many Muslim countries, and by the way, that secularism did not at all mean equality, as I was telling you. So we could take
Nor did it in our great secular nation for quite some time.
Yeah. So in fact, it doesn't matter, as we have been all speaking, if it's the Islamic law or if it's the secular law or whatever, or it's the European law. Turkey took over the European laws. In some countries, in many Muslim countries, it is in fact the colonial laws, which were adopted from colonial Western powers, which are the very source of the inequality, and discrimination against women. So it's like we have to take it in all this diversity. It's very unfortunately, increasingly after 9/11, that when in the West, when people think about inequality against women, they think of the Quran. In fact, Quran is not the source of the law in the majority of the Muslim countries.